Welcome to Empowered by AI, the podcast for women entrepreneurs ready to harness AI to take their businesses to the next level. I'm your host, Michelle Muncie Silva, founder of Innovative AI Studios. You may have left corporate life to start this entrepreneurial journey, but you don't have to go it alone. Here, you'll find a supportive community of like-minded women and an invaluable thought partner each week, as my guests and I share actionable insights you can use right away. So let's dive in together. All right. I am super excited to talk to you. I've literally been looking forward to this all day long.
Oh, that's so lovely. I'm so excited to be here.
I am excited to talk to you, and I want to let you introduce yourself to the audience because I know you have quite a bit of time in a more traditional higher education role in Australia.
Yeah.
And that has led you to founding the very exciting AI Her Way. So I want to hear a little bit more about what inspired you to make that transition.
Yeah, I guess to start out with, I would probably describe myself as a sort of multi-passionate person. I've never really understood those people that have just one thing they would like to do. I think I'd probably be really happy doing anything off a list of like 50 jobs for the rest of my life. But my background is I was obsessed with animals growing up. I always thought I wanted to be a vet. I quickly realized about the age of 16 that actually vets are just inside a clinic looking at cats and dogs most of the time. And I really liked the outdoors and nature and wild animals. Decided I'd love to be a zoologist and try and save the planet from extinction. So that's what I went to university to do. And then I had to learn how to code, which at the time was horrific. I have all these vivid memories of crying over code, not knowing if I should put the bracket there or the full stop there and not understanding why my code didn't work. But one day during my PhD, I did my PhD on butterflies of all things. One day during my PhD, coding just started to make sense to me. And I kind of secretly fell in love with it. And then when I finished my PhD, somebody overheard that I knew how to code, literally at a dinner. I was talking about something I was working on and they overheard and they said, oh, we need a data analyst for a project that we're working on in the Solomon Islands. And I said, sure, yes, I can help with that, having not done that type of programming or analytics before. So that kind of began my life of spending half my time being an academic, doing lots of lecturing at universities, falling in love with teaching and learning, and then spending half my time being a consultant for some really big organizations like United Nations, like AusAid, the World Bank, the US government, looking at how to make sense of numbers and finding stories inside of numbers. And then I guess they collided when generative AI burst into everyone's scene, right? It was this space where it was driven by data, but it spoke to people in a way that they could attach to. I knew in that moment of November 2022 that education was about to change forever. And so I started talking about it. Then very nicely, people started to ask me to talk about it instead of me volunteering to. And that just snowballed. And I had this moment, I'd been talking about it on the side for about 6 months. And I had this moment putting my then 2-year-old to bed that night. I've got 4 kids. And I was rocking him to sleep, thinking about all the things I had to do, the million tabs open, like every other woman in the planet that's multitasking all those things. And I just thought the people that really need artificial intelligence are women. And that's what birthed AI Her Way.
That is absolutely fantastically real. I love that. I love that. It came from necessity. You
It did.
realized, yes. And
Yeah.
just diving into that specifically for women, as an entrepreneur yourself, what do you see as those biggest opportunities that AI offers a female entrepreneur specifically?
Yeah, I think in the female entrepreneur space, the number one opportunity I think it provides is leveling the playing field. The stats in America are very similar to the stats here in Australia, is that most businesses, so a majority of small businesses are actually registered to women, right? We make up more than 50% of the people that will start a business and register a business number. but there's a single digit percentage of women-owned businesses that will ever make it to 6 figures in revenue, let alone 7 figures, right? And also women-owned businesses tend to delay or never employ anybody else because they stay relatively small. And that is not because women are inherently less talented in this space, right? It's because we have a lot of other societal pressures on us. We have this conditioning that we should do it all and we should be really great at everything, because if we're not great at everything, that's a mark against our name. And we also have this huge mental load that we are managing households and children and friends and family on top of business. Whereas men, and of course I'm a data analyst, so I'm talking in patterns and stereotypes, but whereas men will say, no, I've got to keep working on this, I'm just going to close the door or stay an extra hour. Women don't. They get to a point and they go, it's school pickup, I'm a hard out. And that makes it really hard to scale a business, because in those first couple of years, as much as we want to systemize and set up processes, there's a lot of you and your grit that has to go into establishing a successful business. And I see artificial intelligence as the great leveler of that playing field because of heaps of reasons, right? It's a staff member that we now don't have to pay for, that we can assign to do any task that we want. So we can have not just one staff member helping us, but a multitude of staff members helping us. But we can also offload our mental load into these programs. So we can have it help us manage the household, have it help us keep track of all the million tabs that are open in our brain, have it help us do the mundane things like, what are we going to buy my daughter's best friend for her 10th birthday? I don't want to think about it. Let's outsource that. So I think those key things at that level, because most women in the entrepreneurial space will never get to that next level. And for me, that's a huge loss to the world, right? Because women have fantastic ideas and I want them to be seen and take up space. For most women, the uplift of AI is just being able to do more with less, and it's not all reliant on you anymore. But you also don't have to take the scary step of having this huge capital outlay of hiring outside help.
And you're so speaking, I think, to obviously women. There are many women that hear you right now and they feel very attached to what you're saying. I myself, literally before this interview started, the oven was preheated, the lasagna is in it, the laundry has been started. I've got to transition it over to the dryer when we're done. Yeah. And I am getting this podcast going. We're interviewing, I'm talking to guests. All of this is happening all at the same time. You and I mentioned this briefly before recording. It's, if you're not quite sure what you've done, it's because it's all a blur, because we've done all the things.
Yes. And it becomes very hard to stay focused on a dream and a goal when, if you are the one that stays focused on a dream and goal, everything else falls to pieces. Right. And women have that expectation. And we also put the expectation on ourselves to do that a lot. And while I would love all of society to click our fingers and change that expectation, the reality is that moves incrementally through generations. So in the meantime, we can leverage AI to park a lot of those things and actually launch and scale our dreams and take up more space in the world. And even in my own journey, like I am in the AI space. I help women and businesses integrate artificial intelligence. But even if I wasn't in this space before I started this business, I leveraged artificial intelligence to gain 2 promotions in 6 months, to launch things that had been living in the back of my mind, to triple my income from being able to only part-time work to finally having the capacity to take on full-time work, and along with the promotions as well. But it really helped to propel me forward and get me out of this place where I had great ideas, but I just didn't have capacity or resources to do anything about that.
And let's get into the specifics of that for a second. What are some ways that are tangible right now in the moment? Because as you and I have been talking about this, it's like I am crowded with all the things. You are crowded with all the things. How do you just hang on to something specific? This tangible thing right now, I can use AI to give me more white space, because it can take fill in the blank.
That off me. Yeah. Look, when we talk about using AI, there's more than 18,000 generative AI tools on the market. So when we talk about using AI, there's lots of things that we can do with it. I always tell people that the foundation skill is using a large language model. So that's your Chat GPT, Claude, Copilot, Gemini, whatever those big ones on the market are. So most people that are listening will know at least one of those. With those sorts of tools, one of the best ways that I can say this is how you get started with it to offload some of that mental energy and to create some more white space is to talk to it. I find that really reduces the barrier to interaction when we start to have conversations with AI models. So the easiest one to do that with is a Chat GPT app on your phone. For people that have never talked with artificial intelligence before, it has a little headphone symbol when you open it up and you can choose a voice, and then you start having a live conversation with an AI model. The reason why I say that this is a great place to start is because if you're commuting in the car, you're driving kids to sports, you're making dinner, whatever that is, you're running 1,000 errands on behalf of everybody else, you can open up this app and say, hey, I'm Nici. I'm like, I live in Australia. I've got 4 kids. I do this and this. I have so much going on in my head. I just am going to list it all out, and you're going to help me work out what I actually need to concentrate on. So that can be a great way. You can verbally dump everything. And I often ask my AI assistant, all right, this is all the stuff I've got on. What should I be prioritizing? What should I be delegating? Are there things that I actually just don't have to do at all? Pick the top 5 things that align with my goals. What's going to get me to where I want to be the fastest and the quickest and the easiest, right? What have I got on my plate that actually I don't have responsibility for? And I should be looking at where else to park that. I only have this many hours in the day. I don't want to be working till 9 p.m. How do I streamline all of my to-do list? So just having a mental dumping ground is really helpful. And then to think about it like a second pair of eyes on a particular problem. So the other way that I'd suggest people more in a kind of workplace setting to start leveraging these tools is really to say, okay, I have this idea. So maybe I've got a new offer that I'm thinking of, or I've got a new class that I'd like to do, or there's some activity that I'd like to start. Here's my idea. I want you to ask me questions so that we can explore this idea. So you're going to ask me critical questions to really flesh this out. So hand over some of that critical thinking power to the AI model. Ask it to ask you questions. And then once you've worked with that, you say, fantastic, now that you know so much about really what I mean when I say, this is my idea, here it is, then you say, all right, let's make a plan over the next 60 days, 90 days, year, whatever, of daily actions that I'm going to take in order to see this come to life. And what should I be doing? And how do I measure my success? And then you've actually got something really concrete. And you can say, great, I had an hour-long conversation, maybe. I often put it in my earpods while I go for a walk. I've had an hour-long conversation. I get home, it's all transcribed. That's my plan. I literally stick it on my wall behind my computer, and that's what I look at every day. And it relieves so much of that burden of having to decide what to do all the time. It's not all on you. You can compartmentalize a little bit.
I absolutely am obsessed with the idea of Chat GPT as a personal assistant, as a thought partner. Absolutely obsessed with that. And I have gotten to a point now where I'm like, you are going to ask me these questions one at a time so that I can answer you. And then that's going to feed me the next question. And then I'm going to answer you and that's going to feed me, because it will send me 25 questions all at once. And I'm like, oh no, that's just another thing hitting
nobody's
me.
got brain space for that.
Love your thinking, but pause.
Hold my hand a little bit through this.
Right. Give me space to breathe and I will answer you. Yes. And then it will immediately apologize and restructure.
I know. I just always love how polite it is. And even that, like, I get it to give me pep talks, or even just asking, of all the things that we've talked about, what are you noticing are my strengths? Of all the things that we've talked about, how would you describe me as a person? Just little things. Women so often don't reflect. And if they reflect, it's to criticize themselves, not celebrate themselves. So even just having artificial intelligence as a bit of a reality check, like, you most likely are brilliant and doing amazing things. And like we were talking about before, doing way too many things. And it's having a compartmentalized algorithm that, by the way, doesn't care about you. So yes, while it's designed to help, it's not like it's, oh God, I can't possibly hurt Michelle's feelings by telling her that actually she's quite bad at what she does. It's not that aligned to you. So when it says you're an enigmatic person who has fantastic empathy and you're always wondering about how best to help the people that you're working with, that's a real thing that it's noticed with how you've interacted with it. So
Yes.
take that when you need it.
Yeah. Oh, no, for sure. That's absolutely fantastic. Without giving away any specifics, of course, but are there particular success stories that come to mind for you as you consult and work with women-led businesses and AI?
Yeah, I think we do a lot of work. I don't know if it's like a bit of a chicken and the egg situation. I don't know if it's because we do a lot of work with women-led businesses that we end up helping a lot of businesses that are guided by social good and wanting to make a positive impact in the world, or if it just so happens that those sorts of businesses also attract women. But we work with a lot of education institutions, a lot of allied health, a lot of businesses that have some sort of social impact element to them. And I think for me, it really comes down to the success about when you alleviate the mental load or the busy work of doing the stuff, it's seeing how these businesses actually get to help more people. Like even just on a little scale, we recently helped a therapist. So she's a solopreneur therapist. We help really large companies too, but she was a solopreneur therapist, and she was in a really key space where there was a lot of reporting associated with every single client that she saw. So for every client she saw, she was manually doing about 12 hours of pulling parts out of relevant reports and putting it together, and then having a look at that final report to make her recommendations. And what we did for her is we designed an AI automation that didn't take away any of the raw data, so she can always quality control check, but the AI automation pulled the relevant parts out of all of these drafts and all of these reports that she was sent and compiled them into that final report to send to her. So even with editing and review time, it reduced that to less than 2 hours every client. Wow. So with that, that automation, sure, that's cool. But the impact is that she's able to see twice as many clients. And when there's a huge shortage on therapists and on psychologists and on access to allied health services, seeing the impact that implementing AI can have on making sure that is more available for the people that really need it, that's a huge success story for me. So it's not about, I love women-owned businesses making more money, because women that have money, they do good things with money. So that's great. And no one should ever apologize for wanting more of that so that they can do good things for their family and the community. But it's also about freeing up people to do more of what they're good at, which makes a positive impact on the world as well. And for me, that's the real sell of helping people by integrating artificial intelligence.
Yes. That is huge. That is huge. And you talk about AI in education as well. You talked about that briefly. What are some ways that AI can support women in education, creating those more inclusive learning and leadership environments?
Yeah, about 50% of my work is with schools. I come from higher ed background, but my dad was a high school principal. My partner is a primary school teacher. I feel like one teacher in the world of teachers.
Very much so.
Yeah, I was going to say, teachers listening will know what I'm talking about. Teachers and nurses, they move in packs. So 50% of my work comes with schools. And I think in that space, there's a lot of talk about how chatbots for every student are going to help, and this concept of personalized learning. I'm going to challenge that a little bit. I don't actually think that's the real sell of artificial intelligence in the classroom, because teaching has never necessarily been about that. And when we say personalized learning with AI, it's really just collecting as much data as you can about a kid and then designing an algorithm that speaks to that kid. I feel like we've got problems with that when it comes to social media. So I don't know why it would necessarily translate differently into artificial intelligence, right? The power of teaching is having a human in the room that connects with other humans and is able to support them. So for me, I see the promise of artificial intelligence is not to help every individual child. It's more to create time and space so the teacher can create that connection with the students in a classroom.
Okay.
So in that sense, we do lots of, people might have heard the term agentic workflows. That's where we build agents with artificial intelligence that can talk to your other tech stacks. So for example, we've got ones for schools that it's looking for when there's a new syllabus released by the Department of Education. When that happens, it takes the syllabus and automatically it analyzes the syllabus, it pulls out all the lesson plans, it goes and looks for supporting resources, it differentiates those lesson plans for your like high, medium, low differentiated learning pathways. It goes and finds the YouTube videos to support all of that. It makes some assessment tasks. It emails some other teachers to say, hey, here's our assessment task, do some peer-reviewed feedback on these, please. Then it makes all your graphics, it does the PowerPoint slides, and it automates that whole process. And that's a huge workload that's now removed, or has the possibility of being removed, from schools and administrators and individuals, which means that teachers, women or men, but have more capacity to do the things that they're good at. Now, in the leadership space, I would argue that's much like entrepreneurs, that women often have fantastic ideas. They either, I wouldn't even say that we don't know how to communicate it. It's that women communicate differently, and we have been taught to recognize masculine communication as leadership communication. Now, that's not true, but functioning in society, we can leverage artificial intelligence. Like I always say to women that artificial intelligence talks and communicates in a way, it sounds like a 35-year-old white American guy. That's not always what we want. But when you are trying to be noticed in a corporate setting, in a professional setting, and you're trying to be taken seriously, sometimes having a tool that makes you sound more like a 35-year-old white American guy is really powerful. So understanding for women that they can leverage how these tools operate to make sure that they are noticed and that they are recognized. And even asking, when I said I got a couple of promotions, I would put in job positions that I thought, oh, there's no way that I would be qualified for this, because women always tend to think that. And then because ChatGPT has quite a healthy ego, it would reply after looking at my resume and say, absolutely, you can apply for this. Your skills in this and this would absolutely make you an asset to this role. And then I thought, oh, will have a go. And I got 2 promotions in 6 months. So in a leadership position, leveraging the fact that these things can put you in a position where you might reflect and notice your own skill set, I think is really powerful.
Again, that thinker in your corner, because I don't want to say person in your corner, because I don't want to anthropomorphize it. I want to recognize it for what it is, but it is that thinking partner that is in your corner, in the sense that it will be the analyzer. It will look at your resume, your CV, whatever you want to provide it with that critical eye. And you can ask it to be as critical as you want it to.
Yeah.
And it can give you that feedback that is without emotion, without bias. It can give it to you. But as I say the word bias, I do want to talk about the fact that I'm using that in a very specific context of its
in that context,
objectivity.
Yeah.
In
the
that
bias
context,
works in your favor.
It's in your corner in that way. So I transitioned myself into this question.
Well done. You've done this before.
I'm like, wow, it's like I planted that there, but I didn't.
Yeah.
It
This is my
happened.
skill.
But your article in She Is AI, the digital publication, She Is AI, you talked about how AI could potentially screw women over. I think that was your actual title, right?
Yeah, I think, 7 ways that AI is screwing women over. Yeah.
And I want to talk about that, because as we're encouraging women to use it, I want them to do it feeling empowered and with that critical lens. So what are your thoughts on ensuring that as we transition into a more female-led space in the world of AI, that we're ensuring that AI is benefiting women?
Yeah, I think the awareness around some of these inherent issues with AI is really key. And what I coin it as, we want to raise a generation, including ourselves. We are the generation that has to learn how to use this, let alone set the standard for our children. But we're in the generation where we want to become conscious consumers of artificial intelligence. So we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There is amazing things that are possible now that we have artificial intelligence. Huge gains in productivity and efficiency. I think it really could help us solve some of humanity's biggest challenges. Things like water sanitation, climate change, global hunger. I don't think we were going to be able to solve those on our own. That might be possible now that we have artificial intelligence. So we don't want to just say, okay, it does bad things sometimes, let's not touch it at all. But especially as women, or anyone actually, no, scrap that. Everyone should be aware, because we all should be champions for equity and diversity. But the key things about how this stuff works, when we think about artificial intelligence, you used the word anthropomorphize before. I think that's a wonderful, we are prone to make it human-like, to attach personality and meaning to it. It's really key for everyone to understand that it's data and it's algorithms. And being 10 years as a data analyst, being a data analyst is about looking at really big banks of information and finding common stories inside of that information, right? Artificial intelligence does that too. But what that means is when we feed it years and years and decades of stuff from the internet and books and code, the classic examples, like I always show in my presentations, but when I ask an image generator to make me a picture of a powerful CEO, it's hard pressed to ever come up with a female. And it's not because AI is inherently trying to be bad for us. It's just that when it looks at all the information it has about CEOs, it's looking for patterns and it's wanting to deliver that story to you. So when it looks at lots of data of CEOs, yes, there are other ethnicities and there are other sociocultural economic backgrounds and there are other genders represented, but they're not the most common thing. So women need to be really aware that whenever we're interacting with these tools, by default, they are always going to give us the common story. And another way of thinking about that is by default, they're always going to reiterate stereotypes that we have been trying to fight against. In historical context, we've been trying to fight against stereotypes for a very short amount of time, right? So when these AI models talk to us, they aren't reflecting the society that we've maybe evolved into over the last 5-10 years. It's been a fraction of a second, but they're reflecting to a society that we have existed in before. So women need to be really conscious consumers. A couple of ways of mitigating that is thinking carefully about when you're revealing things about your demographics. So when you're talking about your CV before, I would never tell AI that I'm a woman applying for a job. I would just say I am applying for this job, right? Because there's evidence that AI actually will insert various language and suggest different sorts of ways of phrasing your skill set based on your gender. So to remove your identifying information wherever you can. And then also when you're getting a response from artificial intelligence, especially if you're not the expert, if you can't quality control check that information, then ask it, say, all right, that all looks reasonable, but what's a different point of view that you haven't told me about yet? What's another perspective that we could explore here? What are 5 ways of looking at this problem that you haven't proposed to me yet? Because by default, it's always going to present that vanilla common denominator answer unless you ask it otherwise. And then it'll go and retrieve this kind of fringe information. But if you don't know to do that, our whole society is going to start operating based off this vanilla mush in the middle, which is going to potentially take us back about 40 years. Yeah.
And I think that in my ever so humble opinion, this is one of the reasons why we need more women interacting, more minority groups interacting, because we are, in a sense, training it to make these shifts. I literally just had an interaction with one of my discussions with ChatGPT the other day where it recommended something to me and the wording included emotional and something about how I would do something and it would be very emotional. And I went, hang on a second. And I reminded ChatGPT that word has double meaning when you're interacting with women.
Yeah.
And it literally said, that is a really interesting perspective. I can provide you with some other word choices. And it gave me a list of 5. And had I not gave it that thing to chew on for a moment, it would have just sent me something that was, as you say, very vanilla, because I was speaking to women, rephrasing something for women, and it thought that the word emotional was fitting.
Yeah, good fit. Yeah, it's another story, but we designed a chatbot for a business coach that had a membership kind of hub area for coaching, particularly women that had their own small business. And this chatbot was helping connect the women up to resources inside of the membership so that you knew which module was best for me. And we designed it, and part of its personality was that it was a feminist. And then when it started interacting with people, it was always like, yeah, boss babe, you go get it, honey. And we were like, no, I feel like you've missed the point of what feminism is. And it was just that classic moment of, yeah, this is a 1960s TV sitcom white guy version of like how a feminist would sound.
Yes.
And it was just that realization of, yeah, these things are not built by women. Like less than 30% of people in machine learning are women. All the big models that we're using aren't owned and made by women inherently. And then you're right, we are training it as users. And still, men are twice as likely to be using AI in a workplace type setting compared to women. Women are much more skeptical for good reason, because we're the ones that kind of worry that it might end the world. But women are much more skeptical. We are slower to pick up new tech because we are constantly told that tech is not for us, and we are more risk adverse, all in the stereotypes, whereas men are out there guns blazing, let me have a look at this thing, I'm just going to use it for whatever I want and not think about it. So then there's more of those guys feeding in all of that information. And yeah, they might, if they're retyping something for a woman, they might think the word emotional is totally fine and never think about it. But women don't. And we might stop and pause. So it's really key that our voices are heard both in the making, but not everyone's going to be in the machine learning industry. And that's totally fine, because you can also have a say as a consumer and a user. You can insert your voice into the model, and then it starts to learn.
I think that's one of the huge benefits of being a consumer of it, is that you're giving it that perspective that is completely real world, in the moment, reacting from my perspective. And I love the fact that you said, I'm going to prompt it to give me 5 other perspectives that it's not providing me with right now. I love that.
And particularly, we are forced to think about this stuff being in a country outside of America, because obviously when we're talking about lots of things to it, it either, if it's colloquial, it will have no knowledge, but also just even things about using American spelling, or because I do lots of stuff in the education space, using the American grade structure, just little things like that. So it's a little bit more in your face when that's not the way that you operate, but it's there. And I guess the call to action, the call to arms, is the awareness that this stuff, it's always looking for the common denominator and the pattern in the data. And it's been fed lots and lots of data, but it's designed to create stories out of that information. So unless we redirect the story, then yeah, we always just get the same one over and over again.
And they're literally saying right now that what we are experiencing in AI is the worst it's ever going to be. It's only getting better from here. So with that in mind, looking ahead, what excites you the most about the intersections of AI and female entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think the leverage that it provides, right? I do really think when we start to talk about agentic workflow and agentic AI, this is where you're essentially, you now, and I mean, the technology is there right now. This is what we build for people, but more and more people will get into this space, and it will become easier and easier to do, I imagine, over the next kind of 6 to 12 months. And so this is where you essentially are creating a staff member with artificial intelligence. So you're creating an autonomous agent that can go and do multiple sets of tasks in a row and make decisions about how best to approach that task based off information, just like a person would, right? That for me provides a massive space where not just women, but any minority group now potentially has capacity to be heard and seen. Because if you have a great idea, that's all you need now. And in fact, my hope is that it will level out the playing field as well, because it's not just about people with lots and lots of money and lots of resources. They can have pretty mediocre ideas, but because they have money and resources, they get leverage and they get seen and they get noticed. Whereas I feel like with the rise of artificial intelligence, because resources is not such a huge dividing element, now it's going to become more and more about your idea and the culture you build and the brand that you build around that idea and that identity that you build around your idea. And I would argue that women are really great at that. And so I think it could be a really exciting space where women are much more noticed and take up much more space and have a lot more power and decision-making platforms because they have all of this stuff at their fingertips. That's my utopian future. But I guess that's why I'm so passionate about teaching women how to use artificial intelligence, what they can do with it, and how to become responsible consumers of it. Because I think that's a real possibility. That is our future, but only if we are involved. If we say, oh, I'm just going to see, and I don't know, and maybe, and I'll see what tool comes out next, or I'll wait, or I'm not sure if I should touch it because I don't know if it's a good thing or not, then we're going to wake up in 5 years' time, and it's going to be Handmaid's Tale, and none of us are going to have anything.
Being in America, I can completely understand that. And the idea of taking that reality in our own hands, I think, is a very empowering call to action. I think it's more necessary now than it's ever been.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think this is the great amplifier, right? AI doesn't necessarily do anything in and of itself, but it amplifies. So it will amplify gaps, but it could amplify people that want to close those gaps too. Yeah.
Yes. Huge potential if put in the right hands with the right mission. I completely understand that.
Yeah.
So what is next for you for AI Her Way? Are there upcoming projects or goals that you want to share?
Always. The million tabs open. Have we not covered this?
Right. And now there's just more because I have so much more time to think about it now.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. We could do like we're coming up to, so this will be the end of my second calendar year in business. So for me, it's about really starting to step into the power of knowing that what we do is different, and that we do it with a really ethical framework, and that we think really deeply about businesses' problems before we put artificial intelligence anywhere. So I guess what's on the cards is we're streamlining what we do. So we work with only 4 businesses every quarter at our highest touch point. And that's where we go into a business. We look at all their systems and processes. We work out how AI can help, but we also help support AI literacy building for the whole of staff. We do AI guidelines and policy and regulation checks. And then we actually build AI automations and these agentic AI workflows to help streamline how they work and create more time and space. Now, because we do that and we're so involved, we now offer a whole range of online learning opportunities and professional development courses for people that aren't quite ready for us to be that hands-on. So I'm really excited about that because I've had online courses since the beginning, basically, because I'm a teacher at heart, so I can't escape trying to teach people, but we're really changing how we do that. So we're releasing in November this month, we're releasing our new AI for Impact Hub, which is an online membership space that has how to learn about AI at every level of AI integration. So your base level is prompting with large language models, but then we've got courses about how to automate parts of your work with AI. We've got courses about how to build an executive assistant with AI. And then we've got all these examples of agentic AI, and we've have all these templates that you can just copy and paste and put inside of your own business. So I'm really excited about that because there's lots of people that want that kind of stuff. Not everyone has the capital to pay someone to go and build it from scratch. And I've taught people how to build agentic AI, but not everyone has not everyone, like systems and processes and data and figuring out patterns is not everybody's passion place. So we've really designed this place so that you don't have to be that way inclined. You can take stuff out and put it into your business. And what I'm hoping with that is that we help as many people, and particularly women and women entrepreneurs and small businesses, implement this stuff as quickly as possible and as low cost as possible so that they can launch and scale their dreams. So yeah, we're launching that this month, which I'm very excited about. And yeah, 2025 is just really about leveraging everything that we do so we're helping as many people as possible while staying true to doing it in an ethical and really responsible way.
I absolutely love that. And I want that for every woman entrepreneur that is listening, that they be able to see those steps of growth that they can take to scale their
Yeah.
business to those amazingly impactful levels.
Yeah. And that's a last point that I will say is that it's really important also for women and everyone, but to be aware that using something like ChatGPT is not where AI starts and stops. That is a base level foundational skill, which is fantastic to have. And everyone should know how to use these tools when they need to use these tools, but they actually aren't where artificial intelligence stops. And it's not the most that you can get out of it. And so we really want to get good at that, but you want to graduate to the next levels. If you are looking for professional development, or you are engaging people to teach you, or you're looking at online courses, make sure regardless of where you're looking that somebody, the person you're looking to for help, knows what's next. They're not just going to teach you how to prompt and stop there.
Yes, 100%. You are such an asset for people to have in their corner. It's such a gift. It really is, to be able to look at another woman and to say, I'm learning from someone who's been in my shoes. That is such a gift. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure. And yeah, that's very appreciated. I think women are, God, such a gift to the world, and they have such brilliant ideas. And I just want all of them to shine and to take up as much space as possible.
I love that. Let's take up space, and let that space be at the head of the table, please.
Oh gosh, yes. About time.
Thank you for tuning in to Empowered by AI. If today's episode sparked ideas, don't wait. Follow the link in the show notes to visit innovativeaistudio.com and download your free resource created to help you put today's insights into practice. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes packed with more tips, tools, and inspiring stories. Until next time, stay empowered and keep innovating.